The views and opinions expressed by this program's hosts, guests, listeners, and viewers are solely the views and opinions of the original source who expresses them. They do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of TV5 Network Incorporated, its subsidiaries and affiliates, and their respective stockholders, directors, officers, and employees.
Sounding off from Los Angeles, the undisputed king of podcasting, who's all about the good times, Mo Twister. Representing New York City, a social media monster and co-creator of the Not Bill Walton Twitter feed, Chris Savage. All the way from Sydney, Australia, a basketball media veteran and unapologetic cultural critic, Bradford Graham. Holding it down from Manila, a seasoned sportscaster with the studio skills to pay the bills, Jinno Rufino. This is Full Court Report.
All right, welcome to the Full Court Report. It is a Wednesday night, and we are throwing out another new episode for you guys. Of course, we talk about NBA hoops here, playoff season, and there's only three of us here on the show tonight. My name is Mo. I am in the West Coast in Las Vegas. No Chris Savage in New York, but we have Brad Graham in Sydney, Australia, and in studio is Jinno Rufino, Metro Manila, Philippines. Gentlemen, listen, these series are starting to get to the end here. We might even see some kind of end tonight while we're on the show, so it's an interesting time. But before we get to these each and every individual ones, I would like to acknowledge the first unanimous NBA MVP in Steph Curry, which was announced yesterday. I know that we usually start our show with talking playoff talk, but this, of course, is massive because it's history-making. So let's go around the NBA and kind of discuss some of these topics, starting with Steph.
Chris just jumps right in and makes some silly comment, which obviously he can't defend here or make. Yeah, there you go. That's your best Chris impersonation. I like that. It's interesting. I mean, here we are experiencing, history in the making, as you mentioned. Unanimous MVP. If that's supposed to mean something, I guess, all it does is mean that there's a consensus for the first time in NBA history. But
that's right.
As critics have already come to the surface, whether it's Charles Barkley, Tracy McGrady, even LeBron James is in a sort of roundabout way had some sort of comment about the fact that Steph Curry basically crushed the establishment here and became the first person. He beat Kareem, beat Russell, beat Jordan, beat a number of sort of people out to sort of claim this unanimous sort of title. I think it's interesting that you get these old nostalgic folks sort of almost failing to just sort of applaud what Steph has done.
It's been all year, man. It's been all year for the Warriors. Not even just Steph. It's just Golden State in general.
Sure. And I guess maybe it's whether it's their, style of play is what rubs them the wrong way, whether it's Steph's actual, aesthetic, the way he looks, the size of him, the way he's going about crushing the game. But I guess, coming back to McGrady specifically and his comments, which caused a bit of a complaint amongst the social media participants, he went back and basically said that this wasn't the first time we've seen a unanimous winner. It's just the first time it's been recorded. So,
God, that's so, that's so BS. It's the first time that it's been recorded. It's the first time we've seen it. I mean, yeah, sure. Should Jordan have gotten a unanimous MVP the year that they broke the record or, made the record?
Sure. Well,
yeah, of course. But guess what? It's not Steph's fault. It's the writers whoever was voting at the time for that year.
An interesting point. So it is the players, not the players who vote for it, but essentially it is the media and the NBA.com gives the fans a vote now, which I think is a bit sort of weird and silly, but, so be it. No, it's just the fact that, here Steph went ahead and outright won all the votes. But then, LeBron comes out and says, well, how you define valuable is up for interpretation. And it's like, well, I don't know about that. I don't know if it is up for interpretation if everyone believes that this year Steph was more valuable than anyone else. I mean, isn't that why they play these 82 games to determine who is the most valuable?
Well, I mean, I think there's there are other players that are probably more important to their teams than Steph Curry, but Curry's clearly the best player in the NBA. You
can't say a statement like that without giving a couple examples. I mean, what do you mean?
Okay,
there are people out there that are more important.
There are people that I believe that Chris Paul's more important to the Clippers than Curry is to the Warriors, because I think the Warriors can still win without
But they're
Curry.
a really good team, even
Yeah.
if Steph Curry's not
Yeah.
there. They're built
Yeah,
that way.
but
I'm not-
really good team. You have to credit what the team has done because of this player. You know, they don't do 70. What do they do? 73 and what was the record? 9, right? Yeah, 73 and 9 without Steph Curry, without a magical
400
historical year.
Of course.
and all the
I mean,
other
come on.
metrics.
Of course, but I mean, also the same way. Like LeBron, I mean, this is probably what they're thinking, but I think there's some truth to it as well. Like you pull LeBron James out of the Cavs, they're a lottery team, you know. And but while the Warriors are still a good team, and I mean, it's not his fault.
That's not the essence or the soul of. Okay, maybe that's the definition, most valuable, but that's not what it's about. It's like, you know, the spirit of the law and the actual writing of the spirit of it is best team or one of the top teams in the NBA and their best player who was better than everyone else.
Yeah, clearly.
What's the debate about? What are we
Clearly,
talking about?
but-
What are we talking about, LeBron? What are we talking about anyone else who's deciding that
Well, I think
there's a problem
T-Mac's
with
whole
this?
thing about T-Mac's thing is that the league is watered down, or at least that was his early comment when, you know, and that's what kind of caused this whole sort of, I guess, complaint about people with Steph being unanimous and only being unanimous because the talent is more concentrated. And I think that's what McGrady's actually getting at here. It's not that the league's watered down. I just think the talent's more concentrated. I think we have 4 or 5 superpowers, and that's why it doesn't feel like the MVP is an open debate, because Steph made it so that it wasn't an open debate. There was no argument this season. And I think for the first time, the media and the fans and the ex-players have had to all concede there's no argument to be had. And maybe that's boring. And maybe they're just filling airtime by making, you know, claims like McGrady did, like, hey, back in the early 2000s, it was more competitive. Well, that might have been the case. But if Jason Kidd and Tim Duncan and Shaq and, you know, these guys who were all sort of vying for championships back then, if they were all able to do what Steph can do now, they would have done it. So it's not even a case
I think it's a bitterness that we see
A little
that
bit,
many
yeah.
of the older players or many,
I don't think
kind
it's
of
bitterness.
have.
I think it's competitiveness. I think they
No, because
all
if LeBron
believe-
won the MVP this year, everybody shuts up
He does have
because
4
it's
of them,
LeBron.
by the way.
I
think
know
it's
he's got
interesting
4
that
of them,
LeBron's
but
got 4 MVPs, and he was the last person to go back to back. And I think if there's actually an argument to be had here, it's not that Steph was unanimous this year. It's that Steph might not actually be the way Steve Nash wasn't, a genuine back-to-back winner. It wasn't like Steph had done this for 2 straight seasons. I mean, Steph was incredible last year and clearly incredible this year, you know, in an historic sense. But I think last year's MVP was up for debate, but I don't think this year's is.
Yeah.
And I think that they're having a hard time just coming to terms with what Steph means to basketball.
You know
right
what it
now.
is?
And that sounds like bitterness.
Yeah,
that
th-
sounds.
that's- I think,
bitter.
Yeah, I think it's
there's definitely a little bitterness in there, and I think they're also bitter because, I mean, like, Curry is perhaps the most likable person or athlete in the world.
Maybe not because of the way people have been talking so much crap about him and his team.
But the fact that he got votes for all the votes from, you know, a unanimous vote from the media.
Yeah, but
who
Jinno,
usually
that doesn't mean likable. He had a historically amazing season from a
his
team
credentials
that
speak
was
for
the
themselves.
best
No,
of
okay,
all time.
He's
Well, here's the
likable.
thing.
He's likable not to the legends because they're bitter. He's likable to the fans, to the media. I mean, you in any media gathering with Steph Curry, he is the most gracious person that's out there. I mean, he'll answer any question. He's witty, and that's
not entirely true, Jinno.
No,
there are a lot of players out there that are just as gracious.
Influencing. I think that influences the media
It
and how they
does.
feel about people.
It does.
Because they're the ones voting, right?
Yeah,
like
it really
the
does.
ex-players don't vote.
And it's
Okay, I
not
think
like
I'm going to
Steph
curse
is,
for the first time on the show. 400 motherfucking threes. He's had so many other accolades this season. The team went 73 and 9. You guys would be yelling at me if I talked about this if this was Russell Westbrook, if this was LeBron. I'm like, oh, but he's very likable. Russell dresses really well. I think you would be yelling at me because you'd be screaming talent, dominance. But when Steph is doing it, you guys are both behaving like those goddamn people.
I think the problem here is
the Warriors constantly.
I think the problem here
Did you see
is,
Steph
and this
last
is-
game?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll get to all the specifics of the performances in just a second. But I think the contentious point, and this is the only rational explanation I can make here, is that because Jordan and because Shaq and because some of the most dominant figures we've had missed out by 1 vote, 2 votes, 4 votes in Jordan's case in 96, you know, because these guys weren't unanimous, giving Steph the unanimous vote is somehow conceding that, you know, he was able to do something. But I think that giving him the consensus vote actually corrects the history and corrects all the mistakes being made by the media and the guys that gave it to, whether it was Penny,
right?
Hakeem,
But what we're doing is we're taking away from that the integrity of him being unanimous by including nonsense like him being like this and like that. 50, 40, 90. Nobody does. That's rare company to do that and lead to lead that to do that and lead the league in scoring. First time that's ever been done. We've heard this line. First time it's ever been done by Steph Curry this season. He is supposed to be unanimous, and then if anybody kind of insults it, it's kind of irritating because no greater season by another NBA player than this one. No greater season by any other NBA team than this one.
Statistically speaking, you're absolutely right. I mean, no one has put up this kind of numbers. I mean, what? We have to go back to the Old Testament, when obviously Wilt averaged 50 a game. I mean, you really can't argue
against...
It's
about his on-court performance, not, not Jordan didn't get unanimous. The writers that really like him or don't really like this guy, or, it's watered down, or the talent is... Dude, goddamn, did you see what he did?
I agree.
Obviously the talent, obviously what he did on the court is the reason why. But I mean, I wouldn't doubt it if there's a writer out there that voted for him simply because he's a nice guy. He's proven himself on the court, and he'll get my vote. There is somebody out there that said that.
I'm going to say it's worse than that. I think this year, I'm not going to say people were bullied, but I get the feeling that people knew that if they didn't vote for Steph, they would hear it, even if their opinion in their heart of hearts was, I was, you know what? I think Kawhi Leonard deserved at least one first place vote. But I wouldn't have given it to him, but I think
because
Kawhi
it's
Leonard,
also
for what he did,
but because it's also
the
people know now who they vote for. It's
right.
It's public
now.
So I mean that's one of the reasons why as well.
Right, we're all accountable for our votes, and I think not that I have a vote, but those who do, it's all made public. And look, I think for me, the fact is that Chris Paul didn't get a top 5 finish, and I think he deserved one. And the fact that Westbrook finished ahead of Durant, LeBron was third, Kawhi second, as the final rankings go, as I'm sure everyone has seen, probably brings up, I think, 2 to 5 that actual, real debates can be had about those. But as far as Steph, 73. How do you argue against it? I mean, it is a case, Mo, as you said, that the numbers in this specific example do speak for themselves and probably tell the complete story. You don't really need to rationalize it any other way. Plus, they were spanking teams. I mean, if they'd gone undefeated at home, no one else has an argument. But I guess, maybe you could sort of nitpick little things here and there. Maybe not so much quality of competition, but the fact that his team is so stacked could hurt his case, because historically that has hurt other MVPs making the case for unanimous stuff before. But given his coach missed, 25 games and the historic start and all that other stuff, just give it to Steph. The media, I think, in my opinion, forget what McGrady said. He knows the game, but I think he's a little off the mark here in terms of the media making the right choice in this particular instance. Now, what will be super interesting is whether the players agree in July when they go back to Vegas for the Players Award, because last year they gave it to Harden. This year, you would imagine they'd have to give it to Steph.
Yeah, of course. There's no doubt. There's no doubt that he was head and shoulders above everybody else. And plus the Warriors as well.
Sure.
Yeah,
all right.
I don't know. Head and shoulders, interesting.
I think so. Anyway, go ahead, Mo. You were saying
speaking of large shoulders.
Yeah, go. Oh, yeah. Dwight Howard got blasted on TNT the other day by Charles Barkley. I did like seeing Shaquille O'Neal kind of getting involved via Twitter, having a nice little funny poke at them because clearly of the rough relationship the two have had there. But was this a roasting? Is this something like we would have seen on Comedy Central instead of TNT? It was beautiful.
Awkward. It was so entertaining. Dwight had to backpedal. He had to clear his throat like 6 times. I wasn't sure if he was going to cry or if he was just going to leave the set. But he was clearly unhappy with where things were heading. I mean, Barkley was so diplomatic, and Kenny Smith tried to defend him. But they both know. They all know. I mean, even Dwight was in a position where he was like, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm training. I'm working hard," but they had such a miserable season that it's hurt his legacy, and he now knows that he's got one sort of last big final push over the next 3 years. Otherwise, Dwight Howard is kind of remembered more as a character than a conqueror, and so him going on that show, and man, he's already training. Geez, he's going to burn himself out if he's already training. What the hell is he doing?
But you know what? The way he handled himself on that show was I gotta say it was pretty good. I mean,
yeah, but Jinno, he left that set, went up to his agent and slapped him and said, "Don't do that to me again."
But he must have known that they were gonna do that to him. And even before going on air, you guys discussed. People discuss. Okay, we're gonna discuss this, and they must have told him, "Hey, Dwight, we're gonna
my
ask
favorite
you
line
about
when
this."
Barkley says,
and for sure,
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
I
Plus,
love
you know what kind of company you're in with Charles and that group. So, all right, we got to get out of here. We're overtime already on our first quarter. Let's take a commercial break. When we come back, we have quarter number 2. And in the succeeding quarters, we will break down each playoff series. Stick around for that. You'll listen to the Full Court Report.
A Sports5.ph original web show.
My name is Dominic Uy, and this is my buddy Kevin Limhoco.
We are going to be testing products to their nth degree, to their limits.
Cars.
How many car makers are not equipped with power steering?
Gadgets.
You feel the value of that watch.
And everything in between.
I don't like to pamper myself except in a restaurant.
This is the web show for the modern man.
Oh, let's go!
Nth degree. Catch it exclusively on Sports5.ph.
All right, welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is quarter number 2, and we will head to Sydney, Australia. Have Brad Graham lead the second quarter for us. 12 minutes, Brad. What do you got?
Thanks, Mo. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. This Thunder Spurs series is really shaping up as a classic. Look, the NBA admitted even more referee calls were blown at the conclusion of this one. But regardless of the whistles or non-whistles in that regard, man, are we seeing some super talented teams go at each other. Another tightly contested contest in Game 5. I guess this will be out sort of around when Game 6. Ideally, we'll get a Game 7 from these two teams. But interestingly, the Thunder have done what I would have thought was the impossible, and they've won 2 games in San Antonio to give themselves the driver's seat in this series. Did you guys catch that Game 5, that incredibly weird and bipolar Game 5 in which Westbrook started out passing up open shots, then just basically turned into some sort of, altered beast in the second half, finishing with 35 points, 12 of 27 from the field, and basically rescued Oklahoma City season. Westbrook was clearly the best player on the court. And what did you guys take away from that Game 5, that wild Game 5, whether it was the finish or whether it was just Westbrook overall, or the fact that Durant was cold and frustrated, or the fact that LaMarcus only had 20 on 6 of 21 shooting? Like, what did you guys think of this epic duel down in San Antonio?
Well, I mean, Tony Parker's play down the stretch was a little bit, concerning for me if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan. I mean, he had looks and chances where the normal Tony Parker in his prime would have normally made, and he missed a lot of those gimmies. He missed a couple free throws down the stretch as well, and that wide open jumper from the top of the key that could have, I guess, tied the game.
But he finished 4 from 12 from the field, which is kind of uncharacteristic of Tony Parker. He's a career 50% shooter. Finished with 9 points. So yeah, I mean, look, maybe Parker in 32 minutes wasn't effective, but they got a good performance from Danny Green, 6 of 9 from outside, and the 3 ball was dropping for Green. I thought Green was going to blow this game open during the process of it happening, but 3 guys finished with 20 or more points, yet they didn't seem to get much from their bench. The highest scorer off the bench was Patty Mills with 4. Ginobili only had 3 points in 19 minutes. Is it?
Well, it's not like they were out of the game or anything, right? It was a very close game, and towards the end, yeah, of course, right. And in the end, they even had a lead at the end, very kind of towards the end of the fourth quarter. And what I saw is them kind of getting scared a little bit. I think yes, Tony Parker was not hitting the baskets at a clip that he usually does, but he was being assertive, and it just looked like LaMarcus was. He knows I'm having a bad shooting night. Okay, here, you go. I'll throw it out to you, Tony. And Tony's just going to have to create with not a lot of time left on the clock. And I think that's kind of what I saw them towards the end, was a little hesitant on the offense. It forced them into some bad shots where Parker could not hit them. And then, of course, the Thunder capitalized on that. I thought the Spurs were going to win this game towards the end there until for some kind of weird reason, they looked scared in the fourth, and you don't want to look scared when you've got a pitbull like
of a Popovich team at home.
Absolutely.
I mean, look, they went 40-1 at home, and now they've dropped 2 games in the Alamo, I guess. This series alone. So is this now the Thunder's series to lose? I mean, they're clearly in the driver's seat. They're up 3-2. They go back to Oklahoma City. They got that really warm welcome at 1 a.m. at the airport from all the local fans. Can the Spurs go into Oklahoma City and win, or do you think the confidence of Westbrook and Durant now is so high that they close this out now?
I don't think so. I think the Thunder close it out. I had the Thunder winning this. I mean, again, in the last episode we did, and not to pat myself on the back, but it's really more to the point that this team is just way too much firepower. And the Spurs, I mean, again, they're clearly not the Raptors or anything like that, but they just seem to struggle when the minutes are high for their star players, when they're out there, 39, 37, 32 minutes. We're not used to that kind of towards the regular season, and it's starting to get them to fluster a little bit. I don't think that they're going to be a dominant playoff team, and with the roster that the Thunder have, with the firepower that they have, look, they beat the Spurs in San Antonio, and they didn't have that third guy blow up. Steven Adams had a great game, 12 and 11, but it's just 12. He's kind of been doing that game after game here in the playoffs.
But it wasn't like he dominated in the fourth.
Right. I mean, Ibaka was 5 and 4. I mean, they didn't have a third guy go off, which I thought they would need to beat the Spurs.
Jesus Christ! I mean,
that's the thing.
Westbrook.
How do you win?
Westbrook was just towering over guys, collecting rebounds, basically what looked like at the top of the backboard. He was just more athletic than everyone on the court. He was just going around there doing whatever he wanted. He was making clutch threes, saving the team's possessions.
Man.
And then he was basically just playing
and he's a freak of nature.
Super freak in nature, but wasn't it interesting that in the first half he was a little too passive, he was a little unsure, he wasn't know what he was doing, he was trying a little too hard to get everyone else involved, and he was basically, he had 6 turnovers in the first quarter or the first half or something ridiculous that, was almost sort of borderline a career high for him, which is not the kind of career high you want to have in a pivotal game like this.
Quadruple double there with the turnovers.
I mean, it was really, really odd. And then he just went into this other mode where he just not so much wanted it more, but he looked crazy. He actually looked like he was something triggered inside of his head, and he was all over the court, but it was scary. I think he, by sheer force, rattled the Spurs because they knew they had
he had that look in his eyes.
Well, Pop has that very famous line that he does when he's in the huddle is, I want to, what's the line? I want to see nasty. I want you guys to get nasty. They don't do that. They're going up against nasty. Yeah. And that's
they don't have
that's
the nasty.
KD.
They don't have the nasty.
That's that group, and that's what's scary.
Not to take anything away from what OKC did with the 2 wins in San Antonio, but
please, Jinno, take it away.
No, but there were, the NBA admitted there were questionable calls. I mean, they blew some calls down the stretch in those 2 games. So, but again, the Thunder still deserve to win those 2 games. But I still do think, going back to your question, Brad, about if San Antonio still has a chance here, I still do think they have a chance in this game because the 2 games that they lost in San Antonio were very winnable. Whether it's a call or a missed shot or something down the stretch, and that's OKC, kudos to them because they capitalized on it. But I still do think that the Spurs, a veteran team with still enough talent, maybe not the nastiness like we all agree that they're kind of missing. But I still do think that they're capable of winning game number 6.
It's highly unlikely that we're going to see Aldridge and Parker both shoot as poorly as they did. I mean, this San Antonio team, at home, shooting 40% from the field, very uncharacteristic of them. And again, I don't see what happened to the Aldridge we saw in the first 2 games. It seems a little strange that he's now not so much gone as cold as what he has, because I still think he's playing aggressive and making enough jump shots to still be viable, but it just seems, and he's getting to the line more, whatever, but it just seems to me like this, for whatever reason, there's only one guy who can dominate per game, and if it's Aldridge dominating, Westbrook doesn't, and vice versa. Maybe between the 2 of them, there's only enough mojo for one to stand out, and whoever sort of asserts themselves first kind of takes the lead, and the other one just takes the back seat. I can't quite figure it out, but it seems like they alternate who's kind of dominating this series.
I think LaMarcus he's never been here before, and I think that
interesting.
That plays a factor in here because he's never. The first couple of games...
He's never been the man for a conference finalist.
He's never been the man, and he's playing to get basically what looks like, at least after the first 2 games, his team into the Western Conference Finals. He's never been there. It's new to him, and then obviously this is where Tim Duncan, I think, could help him a little bit more. You can't expect Duncan to do much on the court, but at least try and help LaMarcus, figure things out here, because the way he's looked, and he hasn't looked bad in the past 2 games, but he hasn't looked anywhere near what he did in the first 2.
He has missed a couple of gimmies, too. Again, it might be a mental problem right now with LaMarcus, especially, again, when you go up against a team as talented and as aggressive as the Thunder. They could really kind of knock you off your game. I mean, he just has to kind of thank his lucky stars that Ibaka is not the monster that we were supposed to, expect from Ibaka. He can get these looks, but shooting 6 for 21, yes, is not something that's going to happen a lot for LaMarcus. You hope for a bounce back game and maybe just to be a little bit more mentally tough, because I think the Spurs, clearly the system that they run is built to succeed. They might not have the talented roster as much as the Oklahoma City does, but if they can get a little bit of confidence, they can do the little nasty that Pop wants them to do. The system that they run should be able to get them to win this series. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, what's interesting too, Mo, is in that Game 5, and I expect the same thing to happen in Game 6, Kawhi Leonard has just been playing some of the best basketball I've seen. I mean, the way he gets into passing lanes, the way he's able to chase guys down, pick up steals. I mean, guys are coming down for defensive rebounds. He just reach in, swipe the ball away, and lay it up. Like, I've never seen a guy have this sort of, I guess, strength and skill and speed the way he does. I mean, again, I think I've probably been a little underappreciative of Kawhi this year and maybe not given his transformation enough credit. But, man, in this series, I just watch him and how effortlessly he's doing things. And that's why I actually felt a little bad for him. I think he looked a little gassed and looked a little disappointed at the end of Game 5. Because he, had a stellar performance and just didn't get any help from any of these other guys. I mean, I know LaMarcus finished with 20, but the poor shooting and everything else, especially, there's only one Kawhi, and he can't guard both Durant and Westbrook, so he's got to pick and choose. And when he goes onto Durant, he makes him look human. But when he goes into Westbrook, he might slow him and force him into errors. But then it means that the other guy's got an opportunity to succeed. So, man, if you're Leonard, you got to be looking at this thing thinking, come on, guys, I need a little help. I can't do this on my own.
Oh, yeah,
So,
sure. Absolutely. This late in the playoffs, you definitely need another guy to step up. And if they're going to have a tough night, your team's in trouble. Now, Brad, you've been to Oklahoma City many, many times. You spent, months probably there already. What do you think that atmosphere is going to be like? Yeah, what do you think that atmosphere is going to be like,
Well, Durant said that Game 4 was the loudest he'd ever heard that arena. And, I guess that's probably true. And they're, they get loud and they've got the nickname Loud City in the upper tier for a reason. I mean, these people really care about this team, and they know that this could be their last chance to see Kevin Durant in this uniform. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. If they lost this series, I think that might have been entertained. But I think now, seeing what's happening, if they get back to the Western Conference Finals, which they are in the driver's seat to do now, I think this team is going to play for this, at least early on. The crowd's going to lift them. The energy's going to be there. And I'm just not sure which version of Russ we're going to get, whether he's going to be, it's all about me now and I'm the man, or if he's going to still try to be someone who's a distributor and a facilitator early on. Because I think Westbrook showed us in Game 5 that passing it up early, getting other guys going early isn't such a bad thing, because he's still going to be able to do what he wants in the second half of the game, just as long as they don't fall down by too many points. Because, man, the Spurs, Danny Green and Leonard and LaMarcus get going, man, they could blow you out quite quickly as they did in Game 1.
How interesting that would be, though, if they do, in fact, lose the next game in OKC.
And we go to a duel-or-die Game 7?
Well, and not just that, but like you brought it up, that could be Kevin's last game in OKC. So what kind of send-off do you think they're going to be giving Durant at that moment when they're heading to the locker room, just lost that game? Boy, this is the last time we can see
those conversations make me nervous. I don't want to have them.
I know. I'm getting chills already just thinking about it. Like, oh, my God, Kevin, this could be the last moment.
It's not impossible. It's not
right.
impossible.
No, definitely.
Reminding me. Let's get out of here. Definitely. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it.
You got a nightmare coming in tonight. Let's take a break. When we come back, we have the halftime show here on the Full Court Report. Don't go away.
He has made viewers laugh with his funny antics and awesome style in comedy. He has also been in quite a few headlines himself. Well, funny man Arnel Ignacio loves good times too. Curious if he has funny secrets he'd like to spill? Then head on to www.tv5.com.ph/originals and watch Good Times with Mo. Thursday, 9 p.m. on Digital 5. Call us on our hotline, also on Viber and Skype.
All right, welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is our halftime show. Step away from basketball, talk about other fun stuff. Since we don't have the resident Twitter Juggernaut on the show, Chris. Let's go ahead and highlight another Twitter account that I find entertaining. And again, this has nothing to do with basketball, but I recently came across a very popular Twitter account. I don't know why I'm late to this party, but Google Facts. I've been addicted to Google Facts. Now, I know it's a parody account, and I think what they mean by that is that they're not associated with Google, but the facts are still, in fact, facts. Things that you can, in fact, look up on Google to validate. And I was like, I don't know, is this a legitimate Twitter account? They do have 1.4 million followers, and then I saw it. The one that gave it the validity, the integrity. Steph Curry follows them. I'm like, oh, then it must be true. Must be
That's
true.
a fact,
The unanimous
Bo. That's a
MVP
fact.
follows. That's right. So I'm like, okay, if he follows it, now I'm following it. It must be gold. So here are some fun facts that I came off of Google Facts that I've even looked up on my own to see if they were in fact true. And the first one I wanted to throw out there was, we all love dolphins. They're intelligent animals. They're very cute. They're very loving and helpful to men. But do you know that dolphins have been known to go on killing sprees when sexually frustrated?
When sexually frustrated. Wow.
They go on killing sprees.
Wow. Well, what do they kill?
I don't know. That's why I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they kill each other or if they start killing little cute fish because they're pissed they're not getting any action. But I thought that was really interesting.
Wow, these mammals.
Well, I also heard that at some point that dolphins do in fact have sex for not just reproduction, but in fact for pleasure, like right, like many of us do. So if they're not being sexually pleasured, they go out and go out get nasty.
They're supposed to be pretty sentient, aren't they? I mean, I'm not going to make this whole thing about dolphins, but they're pretty intelligent. They move in herds, and it's one of those things that I would not be surprised if dolphins were deemed to be emotional creatures.
Yeah,
they mammals too, right?
Yeah, they are mammals.
Yeah. So here's interesting. Here's one that I come across that I liked, and it always cracks me up when I hear funny things like this. Google Facts, according to the Always Trusted Twitter account, the average amount of time a woman can keep a secret is 47 hours and 15 minutes.
I believe that's a little long. I think it's shorter than that.
I just like the fact that it's 15 minutes because, when it gets to 48 hours, it basically says that women cannot keep a secret for 2 days. Give them a secret, and within 2 days,
forget it.
Secret's gone.
Yeah.
So, thanks for that. So just let them know.
Funny.
You know what? If you're a dolphin and you've killed your friend, don't tell a woman because she'll give up that secret.
Yeah,
absolutely. Jinno, you got one?
Yeah. Do you guys have brothers and sisters?
Oh, I have two sisters, Jinno.
Yeah,
you have two sisters, Mo? I know you have
3 sisters and a brother, yeah.
Okay, are you the eldest, the youngest?
I am third of 5. Brad, what are you?
I'm the middle too, but I'm the only boy, so I kind of bypass a lot of the stigma stuff.
Okay, so according to Google Facts,
yep,
the eldest children in families tend to develop higher IQs.
I'd say
that's
that.
I'd
say that.
Yeah? No?
I don't know. Brad, you're super sharp, though.
Yeah.
I mean, are you the smartest of the 3? I don't know.
I don't know.
No, because
how do you gauge intelligence?
I'm the youngest, so I think it's hard for me to say. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
In my family, my eldest sister definitely doesn't have the highest IQ among the four kids.
But she's not a Laker fan, so she's doing something right? I mean, like that's the
no. She's smart because she didn't take the Lakers coaching job.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
All right, no, that's interesting. True in my family, but anyway, yeah, go.
You're a radio guy. We're all, I guess, on the air here. I mean, this is an audio podcast with visual components. It turns out that honey is apparently more effective at suppressing a cough than cough medicine. So don't go out and buy tablets, whatever. If you need to tickle that throat or resolve the tickle, pour some honey down your throat. Just be careful just be careful it's not Winnie the Pooh's honey, because otherwise he'll come for you.
Right, that's what the wife and the mom says all the time to me with the sore throat. I'm like, I'll go take some medication. Like, no, you got to go with the honey. And I'm like, ugh. But yeah, no, I've heard that, and that seems to be real. Here's one. So we had the elections last week, remember? Earlier this week, and, we have a new president, vice president, but there were a lot of other kind of important seats that were up for grabs, like Manny Pacquiao is now a senator. His brothers have won in politics and all that. But in my hometown, where I grew up, went to school, and lived kind of a great chunk of my life, which was Bukawi, Bulacan. That's the name of the area.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. The 2 candidates for mayor there got the same exact amount of votes, right? So guess what? They settled the entire thing with a coin flip. They just flipped the coin.
No.
Say, okay,
Three times.
Yes,
three
they
times.
did. Yeah,
Best
best
of
out of
five.
five.
It was
best out of five. The girl who won got the girl who won got 3 in a row, and she is now the mayor because they were in dead heat. So, according to Google Facts, the odds of a coin flip are not 50-50, but they're actually 51-49. And that the side will most likely land on the same direction as it started. So if I were the losing candidate here, I'd be like, wait a minute, according to Google Facts, we have to flip again because it's not really 50-50. We have to find a different way.
All right, Mo, we got to get out of here, but let me get out of here on this one. The national animal of Scotland is, in fact, Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn.
That's right. I have read that. That's crazy. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we have the second half. You're listening to the Full Court Report. Don't go away. Back after this.
Welcome to the initial episode of No Holds Barred with the Dean, Finito Henson. We ask the questions, you get the answers. Did you feel rough that you didn't get the best import award?
Our best import.
If you were the commissioner of the PBA for a day, what would be the first thing you do?
I'm not telling you nothing.
Tell us, Leland, last November, when Samboy, your husband, suffered cardiac arrest, what was your feeling? How were you able to cope? And what kind of magnitude of expenses are you facing?
It's not good.
Welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is the second half. We will go to Jinno Rufino in Metro Manila, Philippines for the third quarter. Jinno, you got 12 minutes, and it's all yours, man.
Thanks, Mo. Just a couple of minutes ago, the Toronto Raptors went up 3-2 against the Miami Heat in their series over there in the Eastern Conference. The Toronto Raptors won 99-91. And guess what, guys? Guess what? Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan actually played pretty good together in one game. Like, finally, we've seen these two guys, score 34 points for DeMar, 25, 10, and 6 for Lowry, and they finally show up in one game at the same time.
25 shots. 25 shots to get 25 points.
Okay.
If that's a good game, the Raptors are in real trouble.
Hey, this is a good game considering how Lowry has been playing the entire playoffs. So this, but the real question here is, though, I mean, we've seen guys fall down. We in the last episode we talked about Whiteside and Valanciunas being out, and then there's other guys that fell down as well with injuries in this particular game, and they're all bad. These two teams are so banged up that whoever comes out of this series to meet the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference. I mean, the Cavs will have and I tweeted this yesterday, the Cavs will have, or early today, the Cavs will have an easier time during their scrimmages in practice than against either of these two teams. Right. It's almost sad that one of these two teams will have to represent the other side of the bracket when it comes to the Eastern Conference. Because,
right, the conference finals are supposed to be a clash of real heavyweights, which is what we're going to see out west.
Yeah,
not in the East. I mean, as much as the East improved this year, as much as we got the balance we were after, as much as it was competitive record-wise and regular season-wise, it was really enthralling from my point of view. Man, this has just been one frustrating game after another. And, every time I think the Heat are going to step up and take this, boom, bad performance from Dragic and D. Wade. Yep. Granted they were on the road, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't know if either team really wants to advance here. It seems like they're both just happy. Hey, let's just kind of play each other a couple of times and get on TV and figure this thing out. But neither has taken control of the series. Toronto's up 3-2. I still don't trust them.
Exactly.
I think Toronto's going to run away with this one only because, again, we said it last episode, or at least I said it last episode, that the Whiteside injury is just too much to overcome for the Miami Heat. There is absolutely no front court there. And while, yes, in a small ball environment, those guys who are playing small are just, I mean, they're awful, at least for a playoff caliber team, a deep playoff team. There's just no way that Johnson, Deng, and Stoudemire can hold off the Raptors, and the Raptors aren't even that sexy in the front court. But it's just too much of a loss.
5 years ago, 5 years ago, a Stoudemire, Dang, Johnson sort of trio, I would have said they're going to tear up any opponent.
But monster.
Those are all-stars right there.
Miami is relying on Josh McRoberts. I mean, I think it's the first time we've ever mentioned Josh McRoberts on this show, and now he's kind of being relied upon, if not for one of their rookies, whether it's Richardson or Winslow to come off that bench. But this man, what a weak conference. I mean, usually, even though the NBA might be a little, conference heavy in one way or the other, even last year, I always thought that the conference finals, Atlanta won 60 games. They gave, the Cavs a run for their money. I just don't get why this year these teams are just so. Is it just simply because Lowry and DeRozan are just playing this awful? I mean, is this all we chalk it up to?
No, I mean, I think at some point we just have to realize that there was only one really good team here in the East, and that was the Cleveland Cavaliers, and don't get it twisted with any of these regular season standings and any of that nonsense. The Cleveland Cavaliers from the beginning of this season was meant to represent the East, and everyone else outside of them were question mark. And guess what? Okay, during the regular season, we saw some of these guys step up to some kind of respectability. But then, boom, the playoffs comes around, and they're back to the East that we've known for these past few years as a garbage conference. And there's at least one true superpower.
These two teams, whichever one makes it, might actually be the weakest Eastern Conference Finals team I can actually remember.
Perhaps.
I mean, I'm just when Detroit in the sort of 2000s went to like 6 straight conference finals. Obviously, when Wade and LeBron teamed up in Miami, they were there every year. And I'm just trying to think, we've always had a solid sort of challenger, though, for those teams, whether it was Jermaine O'Neal's Pacers, whether it was obviously, the Derrick Rose when he was healthy and those Chicago Bulls teams. And again, we going into the season thought Chicago would be number 2 and would challenge Cleveland. So is this a case of these two teams are truly third, maybe fourth best in the East, but Atlanta and Chicago just let everyone else down, and that's why we're seeing Miami and Toronto battle it out here for sort of conference supremacy, as weird as that sounds?
I think the Miami Heat was a respectable third best team in the Eastern Conference. The problem is they lost their best player, Chris Bosh. They lost then again their second best player in Hassan Whiteside, and that's something you just can't recover from. I mean, you take those losses on a Western Conference playoff team, and they'll perform just like the Heat as well. You can't lose your 1-2. I mean, yes, Wade has been great in the playoffs, but clearly this is Bosh's. He's the best player on that team.
Regardless of who advances, and Jinno, you've watched enough of this series and you know where Cleveland's at right now. Can either one of these teams win a game, or is Cleveland going to sweep through the East?
No.
The
The
Cavs will have an easier time in the Eastern Conference Finals than they did in the first round of the playoffs.
Sure.
No, so you think Detroit's better than both these teams?
Yeah.
Oh yes, right now. Because you have to think that the injury to Valanciunas is also so heavy, weighing on the Raptors. If Valanciunas is there, and then hopefully we can find, again, Lowry to DeRozan to find their game. Maybe they can take a game in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't know when Jonas is going to come back, and I don't know when Lowry's shot's going to come back. Yeah. Those are the things that have to happen for them to take one game.
Lowry's inability to make shots is troubling. I mean, he got the 10 rebounds, the 6 assists, so he had kind of a decent performance, stat-wise at least. But, yeah, I mean, if not for DeRozan, what did he, 34 in 34 minutes? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Wade, too, has just run out of, steam as well. I mean, it's a case of maybe their reliance on him.
He didn't want to take those extra jumpers while the Canadian national anthem was playing.
There you go. That's what we'll chalk it up to. I was just thinking about this before, and I know I floated it to this with these both you guys. Udonis Haslem, man, what a successful career he's enjoyed, yet undrafted. Is he one of the more successful undrafted players? I mean, do we look at Haslem as being a successful NBA player, or has he just been super lucky?
Well, he's been in the league for 12 years, so he is for a decent player, he's been pretty successful. If you're in the league for this long and you've won championships, then you've done pretty well for yourself. I know he's a role player, but he's definitely at 35 years old. He's never one of those guys that he's not a difference maker. I don't think he's ever been a difference maker, but he does play his role pretty well.
Right. He's one of those old school bruisers. He looks like he's from the 90s, one of those guys that could have played on Indiana back then. But here's a question, I guess, Jinno, with this series and with where these teams are at, injuries aside, where do these teams go from here? I mean, if they want to be back in this position next season, you got to imagine that Detroit's better, Milwaukee's going to improve, Chicago's going to be back, Atlanta might add a piece. What do these teams need to do? I mean, when you look at Miami and you look at Toronto's rosters, neither of them's going to be exciting in the next round. So yeah, I've already got one eye on next season and what they got to do in the offseason. Well, where do they need the most help?
Well, in Toronto, I don't think there's. I know he hasn't come out and said it. I mean, even during the All-Star weekend, a lot of people were asking DeMar DeRozan if he was going to be leaving Toronto during the offseason, looking for a max deal somewhere else, maybe the Lakers, maybe another place. And he said it before that he would love to be in Los Angeles. He never specifically said the Lakers or.
He's from that area,
yeah,
isn't he?
He is.
From
he is a local. So I guess that's
Toronto without DeRozan. That team's gonna.
Yeah, but they got to get rid of. They have to kind of let him go. That style of game that they have is not. It's not going to flourish with DeRozan and Lowry. I think you have to keep Lowry as if you're going to choose between the 1-2 that you're going to build off, and then just sign a different kind of player. It's not like Toronto is a destination that people would not want to go. It is a beautiful city.
It is.
They've got a great fan base, and I think that their branding is really up and coming. They've got Drake on the sidelines to bother everybody as well.
So here's a dilemma.
You can land a good player there.
I mean, I'm not saying that Toronto does or doesn't offer him a max. Assuming that they do. Okay, say they advance, they're up 3-2 in the series. They go to the next round. You make the Eastern Conference Finals. Do you leave that team to go and sign with LA, who is at the bottom of the NBA's totem pole?
If you're DeMar DeRozan and you're thinking max deal, you can go home to Los Angeles, Southern California, a team that you've grew up loving and being a fan of.
Yeah, but
it's very tempting.
Gino, my point is, wouldn't you do that when your career's over? Like when you've played a dozen years and you've already sort of challenged, your prime's behind you, then you can go home and do what Paul Pierce did with the Clippers. But why would you do that now if you're DeRozan? Like, what's the incentive to give up remember when Sean Marion left the Suns and everyone was like, why would you leave a contender?
The incentive is that I think if it's the Lakers, that they're going to overpay him. And Toronto is not going to match it. I think it's as simple as that. The Lakers are gonna overpay for DeMar DeRozan. The Raptors are not gonna match it. Mo is right.
What would you do?
They need They need a different type of player there at the 2-guard spot. Somebody who's a better outside shooter to spread the floor for Lowry, open the bottom part for Valanciunas.
DeRozan's not a terrific outside shooter. I'm not sure if he's the answer for LA.
I don't think he's the answer either. But I could totally see the Lakers overpaying.
He becomes their Kobe replacement of sorts.
Right. Yeah. Right. One that's healthy and can really produce consistent level. But I would probably choose LA as well if I was DeRozan, only because now you're talking about a young core group that maybe next year is not going to make any noise, but we don't know anymore. 2-3 years down the line, and he can be part of that resurgence of a team that he's from, in a city that he's from. So if I were DeRozan, I would likely sign with the Lakers if they were going to be giving me big time money and pursue me aggressively. And if I were Toronto, I'd be like, okay, well, good for you. We're happy for you, and we're going to be moving on from this style of game.
You're saying Toronto's current ceiling, which is second in the East at absolute best, is kind of limiting, whereas you're saying LA's ceiling in 3 years might actually be even higher.
If I was DeRozan thinking about it that way, and if I were Toronto, I'd be like, this is the group that we ran with these past few years. In fact, we got better this year. We're supposed to have gotten better this year, and yet it's not translating into success. So I would have to not blow up the team, but take out one piece that, even though he's a solid piece, one piece that might be actually hurting our chances in the playoffs in DeMar DeRozan and going a different way or going different kind of system.
So, the other side of the equation here is Bosch maybe medically retired after this season. We don't know what his status is. Well, what does the Heat do?
There's a lot more question marks with the Heat.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're more trouble.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you have Dwayne Wade's contract as well. Of course, Bosch's health is another. I mean, Whiteside is coming off the books as well. I mean, what do you do? I mean, do you try and move heaven and earth to keep all three guys there? I mean, it's gonna be a little bit tough for the Miami Heat. Their off season is Pat Riley is gonna be really busy. But if there's one guy aside from, I think, Popovich who can maneuver his way through the off season, I think Pat Riley's one of those dudes.
Yeah, that's the thing. We just really have to wait and see what happens there. We got to take a break. When we come back, we have the fourth quarter here of the Full Court Report. See you guys in a few minutes. Don't go away.
Rio 2016, August 5 to 21. Exclusive on TV5, your Philippine Olympic network.
Welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is the fourth quarter, and I will take point guard duties, put 12 minutes on the clock, and talk about the series between the Golden State Warriors and the Portland Trail Blazers. What a performance by the MVP the other night. I mean, in an overtime win, though, but Damian Lillard was equally impressive. I know the numbers, at least the shooting numbers, probably weren't, but the eye test, boy, was Lillard awesome. Both him and Steph just kind of really lit that place up. Very exciting finish there. We saw clearly Steph have a bit of rust early on, but then the vintage MVP Steph kind of came out in the overtime period and put them in a really great position for them to, kind of end this tonight. Now, I know as we're doing this episode, the game is going on. They're down by 7, the Warriors are, but, that could always turn, and we'll find out who kind of takes this.
Yeah, that's like 2 shots for
game.
Steph. That doesn't count.
No.
Lead is nothing.
Exactly. But, again, another impressive performance by point guards here, scoring point guards.
It's the matchup of the playoffs. I mean, I thought
Sure.
Leonard and maybe KD might have been the sort of, one thing that you had to tune in every night. But man, Lillard versus Curry, for my money, that has been the most thrilling, entertaining back and forth since, both guys have been on the court and healthy, because what a shootout they had in Portland the other night. And
they look alike, man. They did the same kinds of shots that they're taking, right?
I've never seen a guard. I mean, you can go back to the Iverson days, I think, when there was a guy that size who just had more confidence than anyone else on the court. It's so impressive to see, him go out there and do everything that he's capable of. He took 18 3-pointers, which I thought was hilarious. He only made 5 of them, but you know what? Credit to him, man. Like, the guy's just shooting. And again, when he makes them, he really makes them. And, they count and it gets the crowd going. And, he again is we've just counted him. And I think, more to the point after their performance, they let that game slip a little. I think, Portland could have pulled that one out, probably should have pulled that one out to make it 2-2. But, man, you can't take anything away from what Steph did off that bench and in that overtime. And holy hell,
off the bench, nearly had a triple-double. 49 and 8. Sweet Jesus. What a performance by Steph. But do you think that maybe, yes, while, again, the sexiness, the eye test, all of that, Lillard looks amazing. When you break down the numbers, God, this Portland team made a shot. They shot themselves out of the game. 9 for 23 for CJ McCollum, 9 for 30 for Damian Lillard. Do you think that maybe
triple attempts?
do you think maybe they get a little too trigger happy and then just kind of shoot them out of a ball game against an elite team?
I think that a lot of those misses happen toward the end of the game during crunch time. It's because the ball stops moving a little bit. They go to a little bit of a 1-on-1 and a type of hero ball type thing, and it's because it's kind of what they need to do, because the other guys down the stretch.
It's the only option.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust the other guys down the stretch as well. I want the ball in the hands of Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum when it matters most. And unfortunately, that's when they kind of can't convert. And that's why they've lost a lot of fourth quarter leads.
It's the choice of shot mode that I think can be troubling, whether it's the eye test or the stats, that sort of tell that story. It's that you can get a 35-foot 3 anytime you want, but working a little harder, getting a big man to come out and set that extra pick, working other guys into easy, whether it's cuts to throw alley-oops or little mid-range jump shots, whatever the case is. I just don't like seeing a guy dribble around, pass it around, get one screen and then pull up for a 3. It's like, try to work for a little easier shot, and I guess to Lillard's credit, he did shoot 16 free throws, made 13 of them, helped himself get to the line and keep Portland in the contest that way. But just the fact is, both teams can score. I don't think that's going to be ever in question. The backcourts for both squads, are great. I think, obviously Golden State has a superior tandem, but neither team can defend anybody right now. And, giving up 21, or as Portland did in overtime, even though Steph deserves a lot of credit for the fact that they had to give up that much. That's where I worry. Portland's, I think, true Achilles heel is not being able to run with teams and score. It's that they just can't stop other teams from getting what they want. They don't have the defensive prowess to, Plumlee's basically their only interior, presence. And I'm not scared. I could score on Plumlee. Like,
right. I mean,
know,
they're clearly overmatched in the front court. Draymond Green, I mean, if he's not hitting 7 threes, he's blocking 7 shots. So there's a lot of versatility there. Again, overmatched definitely in the front court, and that's where, again, as you guys were saying, that backcourt really just kind of seems to do everything in CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard.
Heavily dependent on them. But to Portland's credit, their dependence is actually performing. I mean, they're the exact opposite to Toronto. I mean, you at least know what you're going to get from Portland's backcourt, and even though they shoot at a high volume, they're going to at least keep you in the contest through any other means. And, I trust Portland's backcourt more than I do Toronto's right now.
Absolutely.
Which is not something that I ever thought I'd say in these playoffs. I mean, Portland is punching well above their weight class, and credit to them. I think they've done incredible things, and I think they've earned the respect not only of myself, but I think of a lot of NBA viewers. And do
you think that's going to speed up? Yeah, do you think that will speed up their recovery process in terms of, getting to a team that could consistently be in the playoffs?
For sure.
I know that, early on in the season, we all had Portland as, thinking that if they would make the playoffs, that would be impossible. So they were able to show that, okay, they have a bona fide star in Lillard. They've got an emerging star in McCollum. They've got a fantastic coach in Stotts that now they can go ahead and lure that front court star that they need.
Fantastic, but sure.
What, a coach?
Quality coach.
Oh, I mean,
come on. No.
He's not fantastic.
No, he is a fantastic coach. He should have gotten some votes for Coach of the Year.
He should have got Coach of the Year. All right, but hey, that's another issue, another debate for another time.
So wait a minute. It was Stotts who dropped the play for Lillard to shoot 18 threes?
Well, I mean, can the same be said with your Oklahoma City Thunder that you have to ride your guy? I mean, you have to ride your zero in Lillard or Westbrook, and they're going to live and die by that.
Quality coach.
Look at
quality coach.
Portland,
Fantastic's a bit of a reach.
Portland has the lowest, and I mean, they have the lowest salary cap in the entire league. I mean, they're paying their players the least amount.
A Google fact.
And the fact that they're here pushing the Warriors. Well, in this particular game as well, they're still ahead, and they're in the second round of the playoffs where nobody thought they were projected to 20 wins.
You're right. They have no business being here, and look, we know if it wasn't for the injuries to Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, they probably wouldn't be here either. But the fact that they're here now, the fact that they're here, they're really giving it to. As I said, they're weirdly confident. I mean, I would expect this team to kind of be, I guess, handled the way Cleveland took care of Atlanta, but instead they've showed up to the party, and man, all the credit to them. Look, they've got a lot of flexibility, and they ideally need to add to this front court. They need to get some front court help, which is ironic because they lost the front court help that they had in LaMarcus, and it's not like these guys are just sort of out there waiting to be picked up. But if you're a free agent, you've got to be looking at this situation thinking, I want to go to Portland.
Yeah.
Great fans, great backcourt, quality
great
institution up there, good culture, great city. Yeah,
fantastic coach.
Fantastic coach.
Yeah, fantastic.
Should have gotten some votes.
You've got to be looking right. They not only I think will they be back in the playoffs next year, but I think if they could pick up someone else, the secret's out now. So kind of like Milwaukee last year, the challenge is repeating this success.
Yeah.
And I think they've got the personnel to do it, but they really need to add another piece. They really need to find that that one free agent that can come in here and really help them out, especially up front, because Aminu and Harkless, gotta love those guys, but you can't rely on them now that everyone knows, they got new tape on them and they're going to be sort of limited in what they can provide night in and night out.
Now, I want to throw a kind of something here that at least concerns me as somebody who watches the Warriors closely, is that they have to come back in a lot of these games. Like, again, early on in this one, even though while the game's going on while we're taping this, they find themselves down by 10, down by 15. We saw that in the last game as well. Is this something that we should be alarmed by? That, yes, they have the firepower, they've got the offense, they've got the defense, too, to make comebacks. But isn't it a little dangerous as we get this close to the Western Conference Finals and eventually the NBA championship? They should not be playing catch up.
Sure. There were certain teams, and I remember like Pops, Duncan Spurs at their apex, the Kobe Shaq Lakers at their apex. Those teams led from the front, and they just would squash you in the first quarter and hold their leads. They were impossible. If you didn't lead on them early, they were impossible to sort of catch up with. But these Warriors, man, they do remind me of those sort of late 90s Bulls. Those teams used to get themselves behind every second game. But you would never, again, being down 12 in the fourth didn't mean anything because they still had the personnel to take care of business, get stops when they needed, and they still had enough firepower, as you mentioned, to basically come back from any deficit. Okay. 10 points, a 10-point lead is not enough against Golden State, even with a minute left on the clock. 10 points is nothing.
Right, but when we talk about, say, the modern NBA, and I think we brought this up earlier in quarter number 1 of the superpowers. See, now you're playing against the superpowers. Once this series ends up with Portland, now you're in trouble because the remaining 3 teams are the ones that everybody was kind of salivating over through the entire season, which is the Warriors, the Spurs, the Cavs, and the Thunder. You can't do that against those guys.
I think what the Thunder and Spurs have done is kind of exposed each other's weaknesses. Like, you're not going to get, a LaMarcus and a Tony Parker blitzing you every night. In the same way, you're going to get Westbrook sort of shooting you out of games sometimes, or playing a little too aggressive and not understanding how to sort of pace himself or pace, certain possessions. So the hero ball that Oklahoma City plays, or the system ball that I think San Antonio plays, I don't think either one of those things can entirely derail Golden State. It's like you need everything to go perfect for Golden State to sort of lose. I mean,
sure,
they've been down by 20 in second halves and come back and won. They just know each other so well. Chemistry, unselfishness, and the fact that Barnes and Green and Iguodala really know how to pick their spots, and Livingston is an incredible talent. It kind of sometimes doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, Steph can get hot and cold, and Klay Thompson's always there and should be more reliable sometimes than he is. But they just have 1 through 7. It's just so tough that any one of those guys can carry the weight in any given circumstance.
I would be a little bit concerned,
luck runs out. I just worry luck will run out.
You have to be... the luck run out. Look, the luck run out for Golden State. Remember, Curry got hurt. Then what happened? The luck stopped running out because Curry came back and dropped 40 in an overtime game that they should have lost.
Right. Sorry, Gino, we got 1 minute left. Finish it up.
Of course, there's a little bit of concern when you're entering, again, Mo, you said it, the top 3 teams in the NBA outside of the Golden State Warriors, when you're probably going to meet these guys on the way to the finals. But I just think, we haven't seen a healthy Warriors team yet throughout most of the playoffs. Yes, Curry played in the last game. And he had an unbelievable performance. Yeah, but we still haven't seen him completely healthy. In the first 2 games of the postseason, and so
he hasn't played right. He hasn't played a complete series yet, so we still don't know.
We still don't know. I mean, that's part of the reason why we've seen him have to come back. Have to come back in games to able to win. So I would be concerned a little bit, but I think by the time that the Western Conference Finals start, I think they'll be fine. As long as they're healthy, they'll be fine.
Well, they got to be fine again because they're...
Mo, I know we've got to get out of here, but your concerns to me just quickly feel like an inability to tell the future versus skepticism.
Sure.
But this is what makes it fun, right?
Yeah, no, it does. It does make it fun.
That's why we watch. We tune in because it's unpredictable. These are the playoffs. You got to earn 4 victories, and I think the Warriors will not only do it tonight, but I think that they'll face the Thunder in the conference finals, and then, sign me up. I'm tuning into every game.
No. Yes, Cavs Warriors at the end, but I do think they're going to have to go through the Thunder to get there. All right, let's take a break. Oh, no, we're done. This is the end of the 4th. I'm sorry. All right. Well, we missed you today, Chris, if you are listening. I know you do listen to the shows, so we'll have him back on Sunday when, again, these things are a little bit more defined. We might have our slots already locked up for the both conference finals. We likely will. In the meantime, we'll ask you guys to interact with us on our Twitter account. It's at Full Court Report. And let's go around the room and plug our individual ones, starting with you, Jinno in Manila first.
It's at Jinno Rufino, JINNO, and that's on Twitter and on Instagram.
Brad.
Twitter at Backpack Baller, and remember, Chris can be found at not Bill Walton and at Savage Sarcasm.
Savage
Sorry, he's gonna blast me next show for messing that one up. Oh man, can we edit that one out? Thanks, guys.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DJ Mo Twister. We'll see you guys on Sunday night. Want to thank our staff again. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs. Bye, everybody.